Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God again. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you will learn something from this video and you'll find it edifying. Anyway, this video is going to be another one that's part of the short video series that I'm going to share with you from my interview with Father Joseph Iannuzzi before. It was actually one of the most popular questions that people want me to ask Father Iannuzzi here. But please be respectful in the comments area and it will be much appreciated.
With respect to the Latin Mass and the Pope allegedly replacing restrictions on it, you must remember that I think it was back in 2007 that Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger issued a Summorum Pontificium, which is an apostolic letter, that is Pope Benedict XVI, in which he allowed the Latin Mass to be celebrated. He also issued a motu proprio, and it was a beautiful movement because it reintegrated, so to speak, those who had a deep appreciation for the past 1,500 years of liturgy in the Latin Rite, or approximation thereof. And it also introduced those who had never experienced it before, because it sort of became an extraordinary form since the 60s, giving way to the ordinary form, which is in the vernacular. And then about 10 years later, Pope Francis issued Traductionis Custodes, another motu proprio, that had requested that if a Latin Mass is to be celebrated in a certain church, in a certain diocese, that they first request permission from the Vatican Dicastery before doing so. Now, is this a restriction? Yes and no. If you look at it objectively, you say yes. They're sort of like making it more difficult, that is, those in Rome right now, for a priest to independently and without permission from his bishop celebrate the Latin Mass, which was permissible under Pope Benedict XVI. In that sense, yes. However, are there reasons for this? Yes, there are. What are the reasons, and are they justifiable? There are groups within the Catholic Church that are openly attacking not only the Pope but the Magisterium, and they've been doing this for quite some time now. Some go so far as to say the ordinary form of the Mass in English, the vernacular, is invalid, that the Second Vatican Council is invalid, that the Pope's election is invalid, that whomever the Pope appoints are invalid and bereft of all authority. And you see the schism that is being generated within these ultra-conservative movements, not in the whole Latin Rite community, of course not, but these are small pockets that are creating divisions in parishes. This is a fact. Bishops throughout the world have reported this to Rome. It's not a theory, it's a fact. But they're small groups, and nonetheless, they can be influential. So the question is it justifiable for Pope Francis to take this measure of putting a restriction on the Latin Mass without canceling it by first asking the bishops to seek permission to have it done in their diocese? Now, another reason for the Pope doing this is because he wants the bishops involved, overseeing these communities as well, naturally not stopping them. There's nowhere in Traditionis Custodes where the Pope Francis says you must stop the Latin Mass, you must discourage it. He doesn't say that, but he's taking these precautions to avoid more schismatic sort of movements that we saw in recent years through hierarchs that have separated themselves from Rome and that promote the Latin Mass, okay? Now, I personally love the Latin Mass. It has a mystique, a beauty, a sacredness, a solemnity, a respectability, even with decor, clothing, attire, rubrics, norms, gestures on the part of the laity that cannot be represented in the ordinary form. Now, it doesn't mean the ordinary form is less important. The Mass is always valid, whether it's the Greek or Russian Orthodox liturgy, or the Byzantine Catholic liturgy, or the Extraordinary Form Latin Rite liturgy, or the vernacular liturgy. They're all the same valid Mass. One form may dispose a participant more than another, depending upon his or her preference. Some love the organ. I like the organ. Some prefer the lute, like David in the Old Testament, right? Even though there wasn't the Mass back then. Some like the guitar, the modern version of the lute. In Africa, they don't have really they have the organ, but it's not that commonplace. They use the bongos, the drums, and they even dance in Africa, like David did in the Old Testament before the Ark of the Covenant. And all that's beautiful. Each culture, each rite has its own beauty and ought to be respected according to the customs where it is celebrated. Pope John Paul II introduced a word into the Catholic Church entitled inculturization, meaning you bring Christ into a pagan culture, weaning that pagan culture of its secular mores and inserting within it Christian mores. Same thing with the liturgy. Okay, so it's an exaggeration to say that Pope Francis is trying to stop the Latin Mass. Okay.
Again, please be respectful in the comments, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. Hopefully, all of you have learned a lot from this video, and remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and may God bless you.